Time for a vision test. If you can see this, you see 2020. If you can see this, you see 2020 in reverse. And if you can see this, you can see two Beach Boys albums on one CD. That's right, today we're going to talk about the Two-fers. The Two-fers aren't in print anymore, but they still remain very popular and loved by fans, as it was the perfect way to build your Beach Boys collection very quickly. Two full albums on one CD. Most groups released one album per disc, but the Beach Boys aren't the only group, of course, to use Two-fers. Here's one from Gary Lewis and the Playboys. Two complete albums, plus some bonus tracks. And that, I think, will be the main focus for today. Talking about these bonus tracks and sort of what was included, what's exclusive, what's been available in many other places, and so on. Thought that was the most interesting thing. And we'll only look at Two-fers from the 1960s. So we'll talk the albums Surfin Safari up through 2020, as those are the only ones to include bonus tracks. Interestingly enough, even though all of the 1970s albums were released this way, none of them feature bonus tracks. This is especially odd considering how many outtakes there were. Both Sunflower and Surf's Up, when they were reissued on vinyl in 2021, they were released as double LPs. There were so many unused songs they could literally double the length of the album, but they opted not to do that here. So the 60s releases have the bonus tracks, the 70s ones don't. The only exception to that, I guess, Keeping the Summer Alive and Beach Boys 85 have one bonus track at the end of their disc, and that's Male Ego, the B-side to Get You Back, which actually isn't even listed as a bonus track on here. It's listed as part of the album. So who knows about that? But I thought we'd go through them today, just the 60s ones, and see those bonus tracks and kind of contextualize what collectors were looking for and what they still might be looking for today. And of course the 70s 2-packs, we'll maybe talk about those another time. So the perfect way to build your collection and build it quickly. At the time, just about all of the bonus tracks were new, but not all of them. It should also be noted that every Beach Boys album is available on individual CD in some form. At some point, they were all released that way. So it's not like you had to have the Two-fers, but getting two full albums plus some unreleased content was certainly a good incentive. Let's begin at the beginning, of course. The very first Beach Boys album, Surfin Safari, was paired with Surfin' USA. Now, as we go through this, you'll notice that sometimes both the pieces of the cover art and also the discs themselves might look different. That's because many of the Two-fers were released in 1990, and then in 2001 they were reissued. I have a mixture of originals and reissues. As far as I know, there's no difference between them. If you know anything to the contrary, please comment it below. But I don't think any changes were made to the actual product here. So here's the group's first two albums on one convenient CD. And we have three bonus tracks. We have an outtake from Surfin Safari, the group's cover of Cindy Oh Cindy. Eddie Fisher did the most famous version. It's fun. We have The Baker Man, which is a variant on Hully Gully. We'll come back to that a little bit later when we get to the Beach Boys Party CD. But The Baker Man is Hully Gully, basically, with new words. It's kind of a weird novelty thing. It ends with Mike Love telling you to slap your partner in the face. I don't quite know what the story with that is. And we have one of the few that was available elsewhere when this CD came out. From Beach Boys Rarities, another Surfin Safari outtake, this time from 1962, the song Land Ahoy. According to the liner notes for this Rarities album, Land Ahoy was a last-minute replacement for, or I should say was replaced at the last minute by the song Surfin', Capitol feeling that one more charting single would do the group's debut LP a big favor, so Land Ahoy got the boot at the last minute. But it was released on this record. Someday I'm going to do a video on Beach Boys Rarities once I can find the last thing I need to make it. And it got its CD debut here. And it's a nice inclusion. I almost really liked Land Ahoy. Now you would think the Two-fers would go chronologically, and they almost do, but there are a few that are switched around. Here's 1963's Surfer Girl, teamed up with 1964's Shut Down Volume 2. Surfer Girl and its next LP, Little Deuce Coupe, also from 1963. These two share a few songs, notably the title song, Little Deuce Coupe. It's on both records, as well as Our Car Club. So to avoid any overlap, they just kind of shuffled the order around. So we have two great albums here. Surfer Girl, a classic, and Shutdown Volume 2 has a lot of really great tracks on it, like Don't Worry Baby. For bonuses, we get the single mix of Fun Fun Fun, notable today for having a longer fade out. We get the German version of In My Room. This was also released previously on the Beach Boys Rarities record. And one of only two songs I think the Beach Boys did in multiple languages, Kokomo being the other one. So it's kind of neat to hear it here. No doubt they were influenced by, if I can find it, the Beatles releasing versions of She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand in German. So apparently someone thought the Beach Boys should try it. It's not great, but it's kind of neat to hear them sing in German. And then lastly, I Do, which was a song Brian Wilson wrote for the Castells. The demo version is included here. The Beach Boys doing kind of a rough take. It's not real polished yet. It's almost to the final stage, but not quite. Here we get the actual, what would have been a studio recording of some kind, and it's actually pretty good. I wish they'd used I Do on an album, because it's a fun song. Much better than the Castells version. Little Deuce Coupe, because the albums are now out of order, was teamed up with 1964's All Summer Long, often cited as kind of the last traditional Beach Boys album, with songs like I Get Around and Wendy, things like that. For the bonuses here, we have All Dressed Up for School. It made its debut on these CDs. It's been on a lot of other things since, like Made in California, the singles collection, and so on. It's popped up there. All Dressed Up for School, perhaps best remembered today for being the early progenitor to songs like I Just Got My Pay and Marcella. It's really nice to have it here, though. It also has the theme that we'll talk about in a song in a little bit, called Little Girl I Once Knew, thematically very similar to that. And we have alternate takes of Little Honda and Don't Back Down. Extended versions of these were released digitally in 2014 on the Keep an Eye on Summer set. They have some sessions and things like that. There's a little bit of that stuff on here, but for the most part, if you just want the songs, then go with the Two-fer version here. If you want to hear a little more for context, go with the digital ones. Yeah. Something to keep in mind, but either way, very enjoyable. Little Honda isn't hugely different. There are a few lyrical bits, and there are some added lyrics in there like, go Little Honda, faster Little Honda, that kind of thing. But for the most part, it's the same. Don't Back Down is quite a bit different. I like the actual All Summer Long album version better. This one, they were still kind of figuring things out. In the liner notes, it's described as the Observer's version, not the Surfer's version. I really like that. So, interesting stuff. Christmas album didn't get a two-fer release. It got its own individual CD, and later will be paired with other Christmas outtakes. I have a whole video on the history of Beach Boys Christmas albums. I thought they might pair it with something like Best of the Beach Boys, which was, you might recall if you watched my Best of the Beach Boys video, just kind of floated around on its own CD, which is very strange because, I mean, compared to other hits packages like Endless Summer and Made in USA, really not enough here to warrant purchasing this too. So you'd think they'd have paired it off with something, but they opted not to do that. And Christmas album got its own individual release in 1998, be it Ultimate Christmas, that kind of stuff. So the other LP from 1964 that did get a reissue, or a double issue I should say, Beach Boys Concert, back with Live in London. I have a whole video on Live in London. Again, we're kind of jumping around, so we're not in chronological order anymore. Concert recorded 1964, Live in London recorded in late 1968. So quite a bit of time between them, but there's no overlap between the two shows in terms of the songs they do, so maybe they felt that would kind of make them complement each other a bit better. The two bonus tracks, we get perhaps the earliest recorded version of Don't Worry Baby from the Sacramento concerts in 1964. So the complete shows from Sacramento would later be released on this digital set. Several outtakes also on the Good Vibrations box set. And from Hawaii, we get Heroes and Villains. I talked about this before. I've done 2 videos on their Hawaii shows, which are so bizarre, you almost have to listen to them just to hear how weird they are. So this time, we can get it on this set. or you can find it on the CD. It was the only actually live Hawaii track released to CD. A lot of the live in studio, like sound-alike versions were released elsewhere, but not that particular one. So you can check out my Hawaii videos for more on that stuff. But very neat to have it here. No doubt they thought they should maybe include this instead of an actual outtake from any show in Europe to give Brian Wilson a little more time because he didn't tour Europe with them at that point. Alright, next up, Beach Boys Today paired with Summer Days and Summer Nights. We haven't had a box set that covers these particular albums, or really even this particular era of the Beach Boys, which is a shame because, you know, a box set of today's stuff and Summer Days and Summer Nights stuff would pretty much sell itself. I mean, California Girls, Do You Want to Dance, Help Me Rhonda, all these classics that people would buy. So it's nice that we have the two-fer for this because we get a couple interesting things here. I mentioned The Little Girl I Once Knew earlier. It was only issued as a single. It wouldn't make its LP debut until Best of the Beach Boys Volume 3 in 1968. It would later pop up on Spirit of America in 1975 and several other hits packages to follow. It's the first bonus track here. Makes sense to include a non-album single along with songs that would have been at least fairly contemporary. We have an alternate take of Dance, Dance, Dance. This was released on the Keep an Eye on Somerset. It was remixed newly in stereo for that, and it's a little bit extended, like has some session stuff. But it's pretty cool to hear that the opening's completely different. And we also have a version of I'm So Young. That was also released. Why did I put that down? I don't know. I'm So Young, that was released on here as well. Alternate take along with sessions. We have something that's exclusive to this with Let Him Run Wild. Let Him Run Wild was one of Brian Wilson's least favorite Beach Boys recordings despite being loved by fans. Here we have an alternate version with some additional lyrics like Let him run wild, he don't care, baby, that kind of thing. That stuff would be edited out for the final. As far as I know, remains exclusive to this two-fer. And lastly, we have a studio version of Graduation Day, and this would be used on Made in California, the singles collection, and so on. Graduation Day was one they frequently did live. They recorded a studio version, but they didn't really do much with it. It's nice to have it here, though, even though today you can get it in several other places. Next up on the list, we have Party. Now, what could they pair Party with? The album that actually comes next was Pet Sounds. Party and Pet Sounds don't really go together, so I can see why they opted not to do that. Going from Barbara Ann to Wouldn't It Be Nice would be kind of a difficult transition, I think. So they opted to pair Party with one of the least liked and least remembered Beach Boys records. I did a whole video on it. They paired it up with 1968 Stacko Tracks. Stacko Tracks is all instrumentals of different Beach Boys songs, all the backing tracks, and it came with a music book so you could learn to sing along or play along with these, and that was the pairing that they went for. Party and Stacko Tracks. The bonus tracks included are very interesting because they're all three backing tracks that weren't used on that original record. Help Me Rhonda, California Girls, and Our Car Club. Help Me Rhonda, that backing track was also released on the singles collection. The other two remain exclusive to this release as far as I know. If you know anything to the contrary, please do comment it below. Interestingly, we have no actual outtakes from Party. Indeed, Party outtakes were pretty uncommon up until 2015 for its 50th anniversary. Ruby Baby was on the Good Vibrations box set in 1993, and there was some of the unused banter dialogue pieces on Hawthorne, California. But in 2015, when we got Party Uncovered and Unplugged, we got 2 whole CDs full of outtakes and alternate takes, and there's a lot of really good stuff here, including an acoustic version of California Girls. That would have been a perfect bonus track to include here, just in case they didn't want to use a cover or something like that. So it's strange that they didn't do anything with that. They just kind of let Party sit. Who knows? Alright, next up. Smiley Smile paired up with Wild Honey. Now at this point, in 1990 or so, there was very little Smile stuff floating around. But we do have some Smile, or at least Smile-related outtakes on here. Notably, we have a different take of Heroes and Villains. This one would pop up on Made in California and several other releases. It has, in the cantina, margaritas keep the spirits high, and someone shouting, "You're under arrest!" All these little bits of novelty that weren't on the original single but have since become synonymous with Heroes and Villains. So it's nice to have it here, and probably for many people, their first time hearing it. An alternate take of Good Vibrations, as well as various sessions for Good Vibrations. The session tapes are pretty common. They start with, "Hey, we're rolling, let's go." And they were reused on many different things, the 40th anniversary release, all kinds of stuff like that. The alternate take only pops up a couple places. There's an extended version of it on the Big Smile box set. It's on the Good Vibrations box set too, but it's kind of like mashed in with a backing track and some other session tapes and things like that. This is the one that has some of the lyrics that were thrown out, like "She's already working on my brain," and that kind of stuff. It's nice to have both these things here though, the sessions and the early take. "You're Welcome" was the B-side to Heroes and Villains. That made its album debut on Rarities as well. It's kind of showcasing something that was kind of forgotten. I really like "You're Welcome" too. It's a very short, simple chant, but the Beach Boys really sell it. We have "Their Hearts Were Full of Spring." This is the Late in Hawaii, studio version. That's been used a few times. And we have about a 5-minute version of "Can't Wait Too Long." "Can't Wait Too Long," also known as "Been Way Too Long," was never actually finished. This isn't the most comprehensive version, but it's pretty close. At 5 minutes, it's longer than most of the mixes that we've heard elsewhere. And many fans have finished the song themselves using what's available. And someday I'm sure we'll get some kind of fun AI version or whatever that sounds realistic. But for now, we just have various sessions of different lengths, various ideas. But it's nice to have a pretty comprehensive one here. And last but not least, the end of the Capitol era, Friends paired up with 2020. Pretty good pairing. Friends outtakes are pretty sparse. In 2018, we saw the Wake the World set, and that didn't have much in terms of new songs or really unusual material. So most of these outtakes lean more into the 2020 side of things. We have the single Breakaway and Celebrate the News. Breakaway pops up quite a bit. We've talked a lot about Breakaway and like the Spirit of America video and stuff. Celebrate the News was its B-side. That was also on the Rarities LP. Today I almost think it's best remembered for Dennis Wilson's opening where he says, "Hello," that kind of thing. We have We're Together Again, an outtake song that never really was released anywhere. This was probably the first time many fans heard it. Brian Wilson wrote about how much he liked it. In a few weeks we'll talk about classics selected by Brian Wilson, and in that we'll talk more about We're Together Again, because he always said how much he liked it. It is a really nice song. We have Walk On By, a almost fragmentary cover of Walk On By. A longer version would be released in 2018 on the I Can Hear Music digital set, but here at 55 seconds, "If you see me walking down the street and I start to cry, walk on by," and there's really not a lot else to it. It's nice to have here as a little kind of fragment. It was on the Covered by the Beach Boys CD as well, where it sticks out really prominently there because it's so weird compared to everything else with just this little fragment. And lastly, All Folks at Home and Old Man River medley for you. Old Man River has been released separately. It was back in 2001, Hawthorne, California. Old Folks at Home / Old Man River, there'd be an instrumental version as well as a reissue on this digital set. So, pretty cool. And that, my friends, covers all the 60s two-fers. So if you were looking to build a physical Beach Boys CD library, this would be the place to start, I'd say. Certainly a place where I started. Please comment some of your favorite Beach Boys 60s tunes or favorite Beach Boys CDs below, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.